Good morning, Dan and Amy. So just days away from the inauguration, and I think we got a little preview of what the remaining members of the Congressional Democrat caucuses are going to do, those that are going to attend, not the 42 and counting that are boycotting. A little preview of that was presented at Trump International Hotel in New York yesterday, where there's a little bit of a cough-in. Who should take something for that?
We need Obamacare. Trump care makes us sick. We need Obamacare. Trump care makes us sick.
You get the idea.
That coughing? I mean, did somebody cough up a lung in that? Well, you busted my onions over
Very
here.
demonstrative. Here's a lozenge, young man. So that's one little example of the pregame agitation going on throughout the country. But then there's something a little bit more pernicious that was unearthed by James O'Keefe's Project Veritas. Undercover video of a couple of goofballs, Luke Kuhn and Scott Green, who...
They look like they came out of the cast of Shameless, if I might say.
Yeah,
Or straight out of Central Casting for somebody who's going to appear on Shameless.
I think they've been in
That's
one
what
of
they
the...
did with Shameless.
They've been occupying one of those 10 cities from a couple of years ago for the last couple of years. They're part of the ironically entitled Anti-Fascist Coalition, and it's particularly ironic because they plan to use butyric acid to set off stink bombs at the Deplora Ball that's happening on Thursday evening, as well as to try and set off the sprinkler system to drive the attendees of the Deplora Ball out into the street in the cold. That was their big play. The video has been referred by O'Keefe's team to FBI and Secret Service in advance of this week's festivities. So there's a couple of things going on now on the entertainment side. You got a Toby Keith saying, hey, I'm not apologizing for nothing. I've performed before W. I performed before Obama. I've done a couple of hundred USO shows for our troops in Afghanistan and Iraq. I'm not apologizing for performing for our country. So he's in, and you got your Three Doors Down.
Yeah, they're in. And Lee Greenwald, but also
Greenwood.
Did I call him Greenwald?
Yeah.
Oh, Amy.
That's
you got to
terrible.
sleep. But also the Olivet Nazarene University Marching Band, the only band in the state of Illinois that's going to perform at Donald Trump's inaugural parade. Some people want the school to decline the offer.
Well, of course, some people do.
Yeah, but they're going to
like all
stand
the Chicago
strong.
Democrats.
Well, a lot of their alumni say, yeah, Trump is non-Christian with what he's been tweeting and saying, and we don't support that behavior. But here's one of the students.
We're kind of rising above it. Sometimes it can feel like that they're not supporting us as a band, but we value all opinions.
And they're still going to go to Washington,
Good
D.C.
for those young people. For more on what is ahead this week, we're pleased to be joined by Taylor Mason, the press secretary for the Presidential Inaugural Committee. Taylor, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
Well, why don't we start with the efforts to kind of subvert the week's activities, a couple of which I mentioned briefly just now. What is the planning going on to make sure not just that you don't have these kind of professional bedwetters do things like stink bombs, but things that are more serious that could put people's safety in jeopardy?
Well, definitely. So the inauguration is a national special security event designated by the Department of Homeland Security. So what that means in layman's terms is that every single agency within the federal government, D.C. government, and local authorities are going to be coordinating together along with the Secret Service, the Department of Homeland Security, and the Joint Task Force to make sure that this is a safe place. And I'm not sure how many of your listeners got the opportunity to travel to Cleveland for the national convention.
Yeah.
But that was also a national special security event. And there were also rumors of how all these protesters were going to disrupt the convention. And what I can tell you, I was at the convention. I had a fantastic time.
Yeah,
we were there, too.
It was a total non-event, all the protests and stuff.
Yeah, there were like 3 or 4 people, and one suburbanites had told them to go home.
Yeah, that was handled very well. So if that's an indication, then that's good news for people that are heading out there or just want to make sure that this comes off, responsibly and respectfully.
Exactly. And so the good news is that we have been working with the Joint Task Force, with JSIC, which is the Congressional Committee on Planning the Inauguration of the Department of Homeland Security, to make sure that security of not only the people attending and celebrating, but also the security of those coming to use their First Amendment rights. That's very important to us. Mm-hmm. So making sure that this is a secure and safe celebration for everybody attending is of the utmost importance to the committee.
Right. And tell it logistically how it works. I mean, there's 63, I heard 63 to 80 different groups that have signed up to protest the inauguration, that they're completely away and separated from those on the mall, correct?
Yeah, so permitting for protesting went through the National Park Service. So they worked with the protesting groups to make sure that they have areas that are safe to protest and to voice their First Amendment rights. So, I can't speak to where the permitting zones are, but what I can say is that here at the inaugural committee, we're going to be focusing on those events that bring Americans together. And speaking to those people who are frustrated, I understand. The election was a hard fight for a lot of people. And people put their blood, sweat, and tears into the campaign, whether you were supporting Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton. But what we want to make sure that everybody knows, whether you are a Democrat who loathes Donald Trump or whether you were a Republican who this is a celebration for you, this inauguration is for the American people. And that's what we're trying to convey to everybody. Whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, this event is for you.
Now,
and this is a celebration of a peaceful transfer of power.
And now the Bikers for Trump that are going to be present and going to create as Chris Cox, the organizer, said, the wall of meat between themselves and the attendees and the protesters. Have they been deputized in any special way that they have special extrajudicial powers for the inauguration?
They have not. So they registered just like any other group, and they have a permit to do what they plan on doing. So we're excited to have them, and I'm not sure if you saw the president-elect actually tweeted about them this morning saying, we've got tons of people pouring into D.C. I'm here in Washington, D.C. right now, and it's true. The streets are lined with people. It's not very often that you walk around in Washington, D.C., people wearing Trump T-shirts. So it's a good sign. People are here. We're excited to get to work. And I'm not sure if you saw the news today. Walmart is planning on adding an additional 10,000 jobs. We saw GM is announcing another $1 billion into their plants across the United States. This inauguration is going to focus on the American people and getting them back to work. This is a celebration of the promises made on the campaign trail. We're not going to have the 14 balls that the Clintons had or the 6-hour parade that Eisenhower had. This is an inauguration that is a celebration of the American people. We're going to have a shorter parade. It's going to highlight veterans and military groups and the diversity we see across this country. We're going to have 3 balls, one of which is solely to honor our first responders and members of the military. And the very first thing the president-elect is doing in this inauguration schedule on Thursday is going and laying a wreath at Arlington National Cemetery, and that's never been done in any president's inauguration ceremonies. So we're excited to highlight the diversity, celebrate the unity, and honor those who sacrificed for us.
So Inauguration Week was supposed to be kicked off on Monday with a visit to the African-American Smithsonian. Donald Trump's in town today with Vice President-elect Mike Pence. Do you know what they're going to be doing today?
What was that? I'm sorry.
Oh, what are they? Because Donald Trump's in Washington, D.C. today. Is he kicking off or is he doing any inaugural events today?
So today starts some of the private events for the inauguration for some of the underlayers that helped make the inauguration possible. So we're starting out with our chairman's dinner tonight. But there are other events, things going on. We're leading up and starting next Monday, and the president-elect said this himself, it's day one of the next administration. So there's a lot of work, final touches that are going in. The president-elect wanted to make sure that after the parade that he had some time to go into the office and get some work done before he went to the inaugural balls. So the president-elect is kind of here laying the groundwork to make sure that we can have all of our ducks in a row, make sure that we can get moving on day one.
Now, what can you tell us about the speech? Again, hearkening back to the convention in Cleveland, I'm hoping it's scripted, and I'm hoping it's half as long as his acceptance speech was in Cleveland.
Well, I can't tell you exactly how long it's going to be, but what I can tell you is that it's going to focus and highlight the promises that he made during the campaign. And this is really an opportunity to unify this country. Like I said, since the president-elect has won in November, up until now, we've been focusing on putting America first and getting Americans back to work. And I think you can expect to see more of those themes in this speech.
Okay, and you mentioned 3 balls because, I'm a chick and I want to know what the other 2 are that Donald Trump's going to be attending.
Yeah, so typically there are balls hosted by the inaugural committee. So this year we're going to be hosting 2. I believe President Obama hosted 12, and President Clinton hosted 14. So we're going to be hosting 2, and that's for the reasons that I told you before. This is a workman's inauguration, so we're going to focus on getting back to work. And tickets can be bought for the inaugural ball, which in the past it cost a ton of money. You can buy tickets to this ball for $50 on our website, www.58pic2017.org. So this is truly an event for the people. We want to be inclusive. We want to make sure that everybody knows this is a celebration for them.
Now, is there a premium package to get a dance with Melania with those tickets to the ball?
I'm not sure, but if you find out, let me know.
Okay, very good. All right.
Hey, you got a party plan for this weekend.
I'll look into that. Taylor Mason, Press Secretary for the Presidential Inaugural Committee. Taylor, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
And he joined us on our turnkey shallwedance.com pro line.
Connect with Dan and Amy using